Introducing our moderator, Rear Admiral retired Ranasinghe holds a master's degree in maritime law and policy from Wollongong University, Australia, and a master's degree in management from General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University, Sri Lanka. He also has a postgraduate diploma in conflict and peace studies and diploma in conflict resolutions from the University of Peace and BCIS. His versatile profile has earned him fellowships from the Geneva Centre of Security Policy, GCSP, and the Nautical Institute of the United Kingdom. Over to you, Rear Admiral.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be moderating this session on the title, Uniting for Greener World, the role of international cooperation in protecting the environment. Today we have a panel of distinguished experts who will share their insights and experiences on the climate change, environment effect, green industry, and also about the water pollution and water management. First, it's my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Erik Solheim. Our anchor for this evening, Mr. Dinik Jamaha, has already provided a detailed introduction of Mr. Solheim earlier. Therefore, I will focus on Mr. Solheim's relevance to the topic at hand, also which is the topic is Uniting for a Greener World, the role of international cooperation in protecting the environment. He's a renowned environmentalist and diplomat, also advocate for sustainability. Mr. Solheim has served as the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme and held several senior positions in the Norwegian government, including Minister of International Development, Minister of the Environment. He has been recognized for his leadership and contribution to the field of environment protection and sustainability. Next, we have the Secretary for the Ministry of Industries, who have the responsibility in driving forward the green industry agenda. This introduction highlights Mrs. Jayasundera, Thilaka Jayasundera's extensive professional background as a special grade officer of the Sri Lanka Administrative Service. Her Commonwealth Excellence Award in Government Performance Management and Measurement is also important to mention. Her current position as the Secretary of the Ministry of Industries also has a lot to do on green industry. Lastly, Mr. Matthew McCartney, a principal researcher at the International Water Management Institute, specializing in water resources and promoting nature-based solutions and ecosystem services across catchment and landscapes. We are honored to have these esteemed panelists with us today, and we look forward to hearing their insights and perspectives under the title, Uniting for a Greener World, the role of international cooperation in protecting the environment. Please join me welcoming our distinguished panelists. Environment issues do not recognize national borders. Mr. Solheim already said about it, and therefore it is essential to have a global collaboration to tackle them. Today, our panel discussion on the subject matter will highlight the need for global collaboration and cooperation among nations to address these issues. The issues such as climate change, biodiversity loss, deforestation, pollution, and other environmental challenges. They are global problems that require effective efforts to solve. I'm sure our eminent scholar, Mr. Erik Solheim, will open our horizon with his expertise knowledge on the subject matter. Mr. Solheim, in your opinion, I know there are many challenges, environmental challenges in the world today. But in your opinion, what is the most significant environment challenge that requires the international cooperation to address the issues?
There are, as I said, three main challenges: climate change, destruction of nature, and pollution. All of them are both global and local. Let's also remember that a lot of the action can be taken also locally. I mean, as an example, the plastic pollution problem is, there is a process now to make some global agreement to fight plastics, but at the end it's a local problem. I've been picking plastic at the beaches of Mumbai and a huge number of times. Never ever at the beach of Mumbai did I see any piece of plastic which originated in China. Nor did I ever see a piece of plastic originating in the United States. 99.9999% of all plastic in Mumbai is Indian plastic, which of course means Prime Minister Modi and the state government of Maharashtra can solve that problem without asking what President Xi or President Biden is doing, because it gives complete meaning to act locally. And if you ask me what is the number one problem, maybe it's destruction of nature, because that's happening at a very, very high speed. If you ask what is the solution, solution is to change our thinking. To change from the old idea that either you go for the economy or for the ecology into the new idea that is a win-win policy, good for jobs and economy and good for environment at the same time. That's for sure now possible. And I will end up, if you look to why China and India are so successful attacking this problem, is because both President Xi and Prime Minister Modi is seeing climate change as an opportunity. Look, neither China nor India has any established trademark for cars. There is no Volkswagen or Toyota in either China or India. I mean, if I ask you, maybe you can mention Mahindra, but basically you cannot mention any old-style car brand from either China or India. What is China and India doing? Trying to leapfrog into the electric mobility age, where they can capture markets. And last year, 57% of all electric cars in the world were made in China, which of course makes China the prime country to benefit. And BYD, Chinese company, just passed Tesla as the biggest electric car makers in the world. China this year passed Japan as the biggest exporter of cars in the world. So this is an enormous business opportunity for China. But the thinking in India is exactly the same. There's a company in Tamil Nadu or in Karnataka. It's called Ola. You may be aware of this, the Uber of India. They have a fantastic factory in Tamil Nadu. 2,000 young Tamil girls making electric scooters. Beautiful, clean, put up in 9 months. Fantastic, world class. And the slogan may be even better. It says, Tesla for the West, Ola for the rest. What does that mean? They can capture the markets, they have the self-confidence to do this. And that's also my encouragement to Lanka. Yes, it's a smaller nation than China and India, but always constantly look for the opportunities.
Mr. McCartney, as Mr. Erik has told about this plastic pollution, can you relate that to the water management and ecosystem effects, the pollutions, how that happens?
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm from the International Water Management Institute, which is a research organisation doing research on the better management of water resources, and we're very proud to be headquartered here in Sri Lanka. As Erik said, in the three main areas of the main environmental challenges, destruction of nature, climate change and pollution, all of those are actually mediated through water. So water and the management of water is critical, and of course the hydrological cycle links oceans and land through water and the connectivity of water. So management of water is critical to all these environmental problems, and it's critical to find solutions within the water world for these problems, including plastics. As you said, most plastic enters the oceans through rivers. So we need to find ways in which we can stop the plastic getting into the rivers in the first place, and that will then provide some form of solution. And last week I was actually in New York at the UN Water Conference, and it's the first water conference that's been held for 47 years, and it was a slightly less positive message than Erik gave earlier. It was all about the water crisis and how we are heading towards a massive collective failure unless we improve water resources management. And we hear about unprecedented floods and droughts, storms, from one region of the world to another. We have storms one day, floods in Pakistan, drought in Europe and the Horn of Africa, and this is affecting millions of people. It's true that we have systems in place now that fewer people actually die from these natural hazards, but their frequency is increasing, the intensity of these events is increasing, and the economic damage and the numbers of people affected. In Pakistan, 33 million people were affected by the flooding in Pakistan. In Europe, again, and the Horn of Africa, it's millions of people who are being adversely affected by these hydrological events. So we need to manage water better. On the other hand, we also know that it's not just a crisis of extreme events. There's still a tragedy globally about, some 2 billion people still lack access to safely managed water. It's estimated that one child under 5 dies every 80 seconds as a consequence of polluted water. And hundreds of millions of children are growing up stunted, in part because of lack of access to clean water. So the world is now reaping the consequences of decades of mismanagement of water globally. And it's even got to the extent now that we're changing rainfall patterns and the hydrological cycle. There was a report that came out last week from the Global Commission on the Economics of Water, which argues that the management of water has pushed the global water cycle out of balance, and for the first time in human history. And what they're arguing is that we've changed the climate and to such an extent now that we're changing rainfall patterns, and that's having this huge knock-on impact onto the hydrological cycle. And of course, the water crisis, as we already know, has been said, is intertwined with climate change, and most climate change impacts will be felt through water. It's also very closely intertwined with the biodiversity and loss of biodiversity. The Living Planet report, which is produced every year by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, shows that every year it's losses in freshwater biodiversity which exceed those from terrestrial ecosystems. So we're failing to meet human water demands at the same time as misusing and polluting water and degrading freshwater ecosystems. About something like 50% of wetlands have been lost over the last 100 years as a consequence of mismanagement. And countries are, of course, interconnected in the hydrological cycle, not only, and I know this doesn't apply to Sri Lanka, which is an island state, but they're interconnected through transboundary rivers and aquifers, but also through this increasing recognition of atmospheric flows of water vapor, so that water evaporated from one country then falls as rainfall in another country, and changing landscapes and degrading ecosystems in one country therefore has a knock-on impact into others. So the water crisis is a crisis which obviously has local implications, as Erik just said, but it needs to be managed collectively at a global scale. It needs a big global effort now. This is what came out from the conference last week at the UN. It needs a huge global effort, collective global effort, to manage the water crisis and the different elements of the water crisis. Of course, water connects everything from energy, food, and ecosystems. We talk about the nexus of water, energy, food, and ecosystems, and the need to manage across that nexus. The basic message I would say is that water is the medium through which we need to manage and to resolve many of these issues. Although these crises are intensifying, we do have technologies. As Erik said, we have technologies, we have systems, we can manage it, but we've got to do it in a collective way. Thank you.
As we have discussed, and also what Mr. Erik Solheim said, uniting for a greener world, it requires a holistic approach. And with Dr. McCartney, the pollution starts from the land itself when the water pollution concerned, especially the marine pollution. So, in my opinion, I reckon that the holistic approach, and again, the measures should involve not just by individual actions, but also business and industries together should take preventive methods. Such will prioritize definitely the sustainability through renewable energy and energy efficiency. We have a new, again, the concept, the green building and constructions, sustainable agriculture, and waste management and recycling. All these are effects of the pollutions can be effect on all this. And to elaborate more on these aspects, we have the Secretary from Ministry of Industries who can speak on this topic on more detail about the green industry.
His Excellency the President and all the distinguished invitees and the panel members. Actually, let me talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, what we already agreed, integrated, all the UN member countries, they already agreed to achieve that Agenda 2030. Under that Agenda 2030, we all know that there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And what do we mean by Sustainable Development Goal? Then sustainable development, we mean that sustainable development is enhancing the economic and social development while protecting environment. Therefore, that we believe that there are 3 pillars of sustainable development. Number 1 is environment, number 2 is social development, and the number 3 is economic development. And how that sustainable development goals are aligned with those 3 pillars. Under environmental, that SDG goal number 12, number 13, number 14 and number 15 has aligned. And also under social development, SDG goal number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11 and 16 has aligned. At the same time, when we are talking about the economic development, SDG goal number 7, number 8, number 9 and number 17 has aligned. So we need that. If you want to consider to protect the environmental without having, why we want to develop the integrated approach to protect the environment? What is the reason? That we all know that there are for the environmental issues go beyond regional and countries' border. That's why we want to focus more international cooperation in vital when considering the global and regional connections and process at play. In addition to the EU institutions, we have a long legacy of working with key regional and other international bodies and programs. Therefore, greening the environment and the greening the industries, why we want to go for the green environment. What are the green technologies? What do you understand by the green technology? Then you all know that there are so many green technologies. Reducing carbon emission and leveraging a circular economy is the key focus for the developing of green technologies. I believe that then what do you mean by the green technology? It is an umbrella term that refers to a diverse range of technologies and practices that can minimize environmental impact. Do you think that will a technology innovation save the planet? Are we saving the planet? Are we? Then I believe that there are more green technology than solar panels and wind turbines. Industries must talk about these green technology. What those technologies? Wastewater treatment and water purification, and also waste management and recycling. Waste to energy. Electric transport. We already focus more on electric transportations, and also programming temperatures to save energy when you are not home, and also self-sufficient building that produce enough energy to power themselves, generally through solar panels. And also at the same time, low carbon construction is very important for enhancing the green industry. At the same time, low carbon construction and the carbon capture and storage, capturing and removing carbon from the atmosphere is also very important for enhancing the green industry in the world. And also LED lighting. Vertical farming farming uses less land, less water, and can be set up in cities. This is very important. At the same time, composting, turning food waste into the fertilizer, and also at the same time, wave energy. Using ocean waves to generate electricity is very important. And also batteries, energy storage is crucial in the transition, the renewables and the green materials. These are the green technologies that we can use enhancing the green industries. I believe it is very important for focus more on sustainable development goal and introducing these green technologies to enhancing the green industries.
Thank you, ma'am. You have well elaborated the technologies and innovations available for protecting the environment in the green industry. In this, what do you think, what roles do you think that government and private sector industry playing in these aspects?
Yeah, actually, I believe that to introduce this, I believe that the international organization also can play an important role in helping to reduce environmental impacts by contributing to agenda setting, capacity building, as well as managing and linking the scientific network into the international or the governmental process. Government that many countries, especially when I'm talking about the Asia Pacific region, many countries government has introduced in the ESG, environmental sustainable governance, and also the BRSR, business responsible and sustainable reporting. This kind of reporting system should be enhanced and introduced to all the industries and the private parties. At the same time, private sector will be a critical partner in delivering effective development, cooperations and environmental issues in partner countries. So I believe business practices has been associated with environmental pollution and degradation, and especially in countries where safeguard systems and environmental governance. At the same time, the private sector, they can enhance a big role in enhancing and protecting the environment. They can deploy private sector with the majority of finance being deployed towards the following activities. What are the things that I mentioned? Mobilization green investment is very important, that the private sector can contribute to mobilizing green investment. At the same time, they can contribute to promoting green private sector development and harnessing skills and knowledge for green growth. At the same time, private sector can provide evidence to impact and also supporting partner countries' priorities, and realizing scale is very important. At the same time, private sector and the industries can contribute to find common ground for the good practices and understanding private sector needs. It is very important to understand the private sector need. At the same time, they can adopt a holistic approach with the government and all the international organizations. Therefore, I believe it is very important for us to introduce this reporting systems, and also government must concern more on introducing regulatory mechanisms and reporting systems that they want to introduce to the develop public-private partnership, also very important.
Thank you, ma'am. Very well explained. And I will go back again to the Mr. McCartney. Mr. McCartney, can I ask, or will you be able to tell us more about the work of the International Water Management Institute and how it is contributing to sustainable water infrastructure and ecosystems?
Sure. So the International Water Management Institute, like I said, it's a research organization. We work across Africa and Asia, looking at how we can manage water resources better to improve livelihoods and ensure food security and alleviate poverty. There's a general recognition, I think, that water is core to all of the SDGs, in fact, right across the SDGs, not just SDG 6, which is the main water one, but all the rest, because water is so critical for all sectors, including, for instance, obviously for agriculture, for industry, for energy production, etc. And what we need to do with water is manage water in an integrated way, so that it brings benefits across all these sectors and we minimize the trade-offs that occur. At the moment, water resources management is too piecemeal with many different sectors having an impact on water without really thinking about the consequences and the cumulative consequences of the way that water is managed. So the International Water Management Institute tries to look at options, solutions, innovations that can be brought to bear to manage water resources better. And just as an example, so we do some research on what we call nature-based solutions. So nature-based solutions, which are now becoming very topical, are the idea that we can use natural systems, ecosystems, to help with the management of water. And it's something that's been mentioned. It was mentioned a lot at this UN conference I was at last week. It was mentioned a lot at COP27 in Egypt. And the basic thinking is, yes, that you have natural systems and the processes of natural systems which are in good condition can help with the management of water. And just as an example, here in Sri Lanka, we're doing research on wetlands here in Colombo, along with the government, so the UDA, the Urban Development Authority, the Department of Wildlife, the Biodiversity Secretariat, SLLDC, etc. We're working with these government institutions, all of which have a mandate of some kind to manage wetlands within Colombo. And then we're working with, in addition to those organisations, with local communities to try and align community practices with government policy, which is all about ensuring that these wetlands are protected and maintained, not degraded, in order for them to provide what we call ecosystem services to communities. And key to these ecosystem services, which these wetlands can provide, is flood reduction. So when big storms come, a lot of the water can be absorbed within the wetland systems without causing flooding within the city. But they also bring many other co-benefits. So temperature control, for instance, as climate change happens and temperatures are rising, wetlands within the urban environment can help reduce air temperatures. They also important for food production, and many of them rice is grown, fish are caught, etc. And often people gain livelihood benefits from the natural systems and the wetlands. So we're trying to work with the government, with the local communities to make sure that the wetlands are maintained and preserved. And just to show you that this is another example of where Sri Lanka is leading the world. Sri Lanka was Colombo. The Ramsar Convention is a wetland convention which is intended to preserve and conserve wetlands. And I think it was in 2018, Colombo was accredited as a wetland city. It named 5 or 6 or maybe a dozen cities around the world where they were managing wetlands in a way that was exemplary for the rest of the world. And Colombo was acknowledged as one of those cities and was given that accreditation. And it was actually the only global world capital which got that acknowledgement. So this is something, I think, and that sort of learning that's coming from Sri Lanka could be dispersed around the world to other places so that they can think about how to manage these natural systems in a similar way. So thank you very much. And that's just a good example of where learning from one country needs to be passed on to others. Thank you.
Mr. Solheim, you said about the deep sea mining or deep sea exploration. The seabed mining would generate extensive revenues. There is a big potential, and it was an untapped area in most of the countries because the innovative and technology issues. Article 145 of Law of the Sea Convention has given the International Seabed Authority to regulate or responsible for adopting appropriate rules and regulations. But you think that those regulations or rules that have been brought up, will it be enough for seabed, kind of a large area and a vast subject involved with a lot of stakeholders as well as different technologies. You think that available rules and regulations are enough to protect the environment and hazards coming out of the seabed mining?
I think the main factor kind of making sure this is not happening at any major scale at the moment is simply the price. It's so costly to really mine something from the deep seas that it can only happen for something which is extremely valuable, something which is very valuable at a very in a very focused form, and for any other mineral it will at this stage not be cost effective. So I think, and I also think that it would be stupid to say that for all of future we should not do any deep sea mining. But we should not do it in such a way, an experimental way, which potentially can destroy nature. And we should also take into our thinking that at this stage, in reality, only a few nations will have the technology and ability and resources to do it, meaning, yes, United States of America, yes, China, yes, Europe, but not so many others. So it can be also very Japan, Korea, but it can be a very unfair world if just a few nations can do this at what is really resources that should commend the humanity. So I think we should go slow. We should put science at the core and make sure that we are not doing anything which is experimental and can have major harm to nature.
Thank you, sir. Because of the time constraints, there are a lot to talk about, and there are a lot of ideas can be mixed around, but yet that due to the time constraints, I think we have come to the end of